Kia ora, folks. My name's Tommy. This is the fucking Woo Woo podcast. Hope you're having a lovely morning or evening or day or 3 in the fucking morning, whenever it is you're watching this thing. This is a podcast about the struggles of life and how we work together to get through them. And I thought today. Here's what happened, right? Okay, here's what happened. I was doing this. I was doing these show notes about what the podcast's about, and I wrote down it's also about sexuality. And I thought I haven't said anything about sexuality. Like I don't think I've mentioned. I've talked about heartache. I've talked about relationship dynamics a little bit. I probably got a lot more to say about that, but I haven't talked a lot about sexuality at all. Now, I don't have a lot to say about it, prepared, that is. I can talk about it at length if people are interested, and I haven't talked about gender. And, I've talked about gender a little bit. And I just thought there's very little chance people are going to mistake what I do for some fucking incel Jordan Peterson type podcast. You know, there's not a whole bunch of I'm not giving a whole bunch of opportunity to come off as if I might be misogynist, or as if I might be anti-trans or something. You know what I mean? But I haven't talked explicitly about those topics, about gender, about power dynamics, about how I conceptualize my own gender. And I just thought maybe I should talk about that stuff. It'd be great if anyone has anything that they'd like to hear my take on in regards to that stuff, because I feel like just talking about gender and sex and sexuality without knowing what people are interested in, this is a weird thing to be saying. I'm always fucking talking without having any idea what people are interested in. Oh, do I feel insecure talking about sex and gender? Do I feel all giggly and naughty talking about sexuality and gender? I sure do. I sure do, folks. Like a lot of you, I think talking about sex is excruciating. It's excruciating for me. And it's delightful. And I feel really embarrassed in a really good way doing it. So in this version of me, I seem to have come into this life being very heterosexual. I have tried to be bisexual on a few occasions when opportunistically, and found that the touch of men was not comfortable to me. That might be because I didn't have a father, and it might be because I wasn't touched by men as a child very much, if at all. And so the smell of men, the pheromones, the sensation of a man's energy, of masculine energy near to me physically, is not something I ever became accustomed to, so it makes me uncomfortable. An experience as a kid that was a little bit scary, that could have led to a sexual trauma, but luckily didn't, has possibly impacted on me a little bit as well. In fact, there was another thing that happened as a young teenager that was borderline sexual assault, also would have had an impact on that as well. So I haven't been able to be as creative or wild sexually in regards to group sex situations or bisexuality as I might have otherwise liked to be, because I certainly have no judgment whatsoever around any consenting adults performing acts of love and sexuality and sensuality. And well, that's not true. I have some hang-ups. I do have some hang-ups. Hey, I'll just own it. And please, if this is one of the things, if this is one of your kinks, if this is one of the things you're into, please don't be offended by me having a hang-up around it. Me having a hang-up around it isn't me saying it's wrong or it's bad. It's just me expressing my hang-up around it. So here's something to do with sexuality. So when the mother of my children and I opened our relationship, I was trying to find other people who were polyamorous, because I found that people who were polyamorous, for those who don't know, a form of ethical non-monogamy involving having other relationships, having multiple romantic relationships. I would try and find people who were also polyamorous, because I found when I dated people who weren't polyamorous and said, I'll try dating someone who's polyamorous, they would normally say, look, I'm actually going to get hurt here. I'm going to fall in love with you. And you've got a wife and kids, and so that's not safe for me. So they'd end the relationship quite quickly. So I found if I dated someone who was also polyamorous, and preferably also someone who was polyamorous who had their own partner, that their own primary partner, because polyamory talks about hierarchies, primary being the main person, and then you have other levels of romantic relationship. I actually prefer a type of a structure called relationship anarchy, which isn't what you would think it might be based on the name. So if you Google relationship, in fact, I'll put it in the show notes. There's a thing called relationship anarchy, and relationship anarchy is an incredibly respectful and incredibly caring and quite, I think, beautiful approach, or yeah, approach to how you approach relationships. What I love about it is it really prioritizes non-sexual, non-romantic relationships, instead of saying this kind of standard thing that we've all been kind of conditioned for, which is our romantic relationship is the most important relationship in our life. They talk about all the different types of relationships, platonic relationships, familial relationships, and just how significant and meaningful and rich they can be, and how many relational and developmental needs those types of relationships can meet in us, you know? And I think that's a very beautiful way to live. Anyway, I found that dating people who were also polyamorous meant that we were kind of on an equal footing, on a level footing, and it just felt there was more equity, and I'm all about equity in relationships. And I found, so I was told that to meet polyamorous people, I was, instead of being on Bumble or Tinder, I should be on these like different sites that are kind of more alternative. And these alternative sites, I found, my experience of them was that they were not that many polyamorous people on there, and a lot of people who were heavily into kink. And I love the idea of kink, right? Like I love creativity and sexuality. I love creativity in all things. And yet I found a lot of people who asked me to be their dom. And dom meaning like there's the concept in kink of you know, look, I'm so ignorant to this shit. I'm the last one who should be explaining this stuff. But dom being dominant, right? And sub being submissive. And, you know, there's probably some really cheesy, non-nuanced ways of describing what that means and what those dynamics are. But I won't go into that because I didn't know enough about it. But basically, these women would say to me, you know, are you into dom and sub dynamics? You know, I think you'd be an amazing dom and stuff like that. And I would say, fuck no, I'm not into dom sub dynamics. I'm not into dom sub dynamics at all. I think it's fucking like morally wrong and gross. Not morally wrong and gross. People are gonna switch. I've changed, okay? I've changed, so please just bear with me. I would be like, fuck no, I'm not into that, right? I'm not into that. I do not see any reason why a man should be fucking humiliating you or hurting you or saying nasty things to you. And I, as a man, as a fairly radical feminist, I have no desire whatsoever to do that to a woman, okay? And in terms of saying feminist, by the way, so I have done a little bit of Googling around this. There does seem to be different schools of thought on whether or not a man can be an ally or a man can be a feminist, and there's a lot of schools of thought and a lot of theoreticians who are popular within feminism and who write about this stuff, and political forces within this who say that men absolutely can be feminists. So I'm saying I'm feminist, but if there are feminist women out there who say I shouldn't be calling myself a feminist or a third wave feminist or a radical feminist, I will absolutely listen to that, and I'm willing to change terms. It's just from what I've read and what I've been able to pick up, that is appropriate to call myself a feminist. But if you know, if there seems to be some consensus out there that I've missed and not been able to find, I will stop using that term and I will call myself an ally or whatever is the better word. Anyway. And these women would explain to me, and to the point where I could actually fucking hear them and get it, right? Get over my bias. They would say, for us, it's about in our lives, we constantly have to battle men in the workplace and put up with fucking being mansplained and fucking, fight to have our place and, be ambassadors of feminism and la la la. And actually, when it comes to into the bedroom, into sexuality, it's actually nice for us to be able to be taken care of and surrender into different dynamics, and this is actually a healing experience. And then also I was aware of people who've had sexual trauma, playing out those traumas in sexual play with safety and rules and boundaries, and finding that cathartic and healing. So after a period of time, I could understand it, right? So, but this is kind of where I've gotten to, and this is where I'm still stuck. So this is where I say I still have a bias. So I can get why a woman wants to have that experience. I can absolutely understand that now, and I don't in any way think that's gross or disgusting or anti-feminist. I totally get it, right? Like, I have so much love and appreciation and care and respect for why a woman wants to have that experience, okay? Here's where I struggle. I don't see how a man living in this society, in this world, with all the fucking male privilege they hold, feels further additional need to dominate, humiliate, or cause pain to a woman or the feminine. That's what I struggle with. Like, and to be honest with you, you can send me in some comments and explain to me what I'm missing and stuff, and I will be open to it. I promise I will be open to it. I will be open to it. But the way I conceive reality, what's happening here in society and stuff, I'm struggling. I'll just be honest, I'm fucking struggling, like with a certain degree of ferocity where I can tell my issues about men are being triggered even talking about it. How a man needs to further assert his dominance over females. That's something that that I don't feel very safe with. Funny how conversation about sex could lead to me feeling some of the deepest feelings I've felt on a podcast. I was not anticipating this. I was not anticipating this, my friends. So I'm a man, and I'm a cis man, for those of you who don't know that term. Cis meaning that you identify as the gender that you are born biologically. And I am a cis man. And before I ever heard of the terms trans or non-binary, I was the type of man who would say I am deeply in touch with the feminine and experience myself as very feminine. And am proud as hell of being as feminine as I am and as comfortable as I am with my femininity. Love that about myself. Love that about myself. But through no fault of my mother and her feminist and often lesbian friends, I was raised with some negative messaging around men, some of which I have transcended, some of which I think I have transcended, but the lens through which I perceive reality, being a lens I can't just take off and look around the other side of, through my lens I've transcended it, but maybe I have not. So messaging I got around men, again, wasn't necessarily overtly spoken to me in this way, but this is what I believed about men for the lion's share of my life. Men are smelly, men are hairy, men are dirty, men are loud, men are obnoxious, men are ignorant, men are arrogant, men are rapists, men are child abusers, men are pedophiles, men are cheaters, men are liars, men are selfish, men hold all the power and use it to exploit women and children. Men are the reason why we are destroying the environment. Men are the reason why we put being rich and whatever, over looking after people. Men are the reason we have political parties like National and ACT. Men are hypocrites. Men want it both ways. Men are the reason that women are starving themselves and making themselves purge their meals. Men are the reason for all of this stuff. Everything that's wrong with the world is because of men. And it's hard for me to not think that's true. And it's hard for me, being a man, believing all this to be true. And when you look at who has held power for thousands of years, quite in most of the dominant cultures, I think it's hard to put forward an argument to say that no, women are equally responsible for the state of affairs we find ourselves in. Like that we have been, the superpowers of the world have been patriarchies. Like that's not, I don't think that's up for too much debate. And, you know, it's women who would rather meet a wild fucking animal in the woods than someone of the opposite gender, not men. Every fucking man would say, I'd rather meet a woman than a bear. You know. And even hearing me say that probably makes a lot of women shudder. And I work with sexual trauma every day. You know what I mean? Like, even my clients who don't come to me for sexual trauma, so many of them have experienced sexual trauma. That is such a big part of the work I do. And even just my friends, even just my female friends, just fucking walking down the street or being on fucking Tinder or going out on a date or being married to a man, like just the constant fucking way in which men are letting women down and hurting them. And I'm so fucking sick of it. And I keep thinking, I'll do this work and I'll forgive men. I'll realize that men are beautiful and the masculine is divine too, and that la da la da la. But I can't stop hearing my friends tell me about what these fucking guys did, and my clients telling me what these fucking men did. And so I do the work and I forgive men and I forgive myself for being male. But the work keeps fucking coming because it's an endless fucking tirade of men fucking over women, just abundantly fucking everywhere. And I'm not saying, guys, I'm not saying that you haven't been hurt by your girlfriends, you haven't been cheated on by a woman, or that you're not having a hard time in family court, or that you're not struggling. Like, I'm not saying men don't have a hard time, guys, like this. It's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, like, for me, how I conceptualize reality, what I'm exposed to, I just don't think we're even fucking close enough to having a safe society for women, let alone an equitable society for women. So I'm a little bit prone to thinking men's fucking issues and men's fucking complaints just need to take a fucking back seat. And why you would want to fucking dominate a woman sexually is a bit fucking mind-boggling to me. And I know I'm not being kind to men in this podcast. And the truth is I don't feel kind to men. And the truth is it's hard to hate your father and to hate the gender that you are. And to wish so deeply that men could be different. It's a wound, my friends. It's a wound I can't get over very easily. It's a wound sometimes I don't want to get over. Or I do. And I try. But these stories of what men are doing to women keep picking the fucking scab off for me. have a few best friends. I have a few people who are the closest people in my life. And the one who probably looks after me the most, and I feel the safest with, or at least one of the two, is a man. He's a man called AJ. And he's going to be on this podcast because originally the podcast was always meant to be the two of us. But neither of us are very technologically savvy. And we couldn't work out how to do a podcast together with him living in Christchurch and me living up here without having to do a whole bunch of shit. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I don't edit this podcast. This is literally just me talking into a camera with a light. And then I put it on, and then I haven't even put it on YouTube yet. Hopefully it's not that fucking hard to do. I don't know how to do this shit. So so the only way me and AJ are going to do podcast is when he's visiting me, and I'm literally going to have him sitting beside me here, or I'll be down at his house, and we're going to do we're just going to talk for hours and hours and film all of them, and we'll divide them into separate little 30-minute podcasts. Anyway, I fucking love AJ. I fucking love this man. And he's not selfish or smelly or a rapist or a child abuser or an asshole or trying to fuck as many women as he can or being selfish with his partner or putting his needs before his partner's needs. He doesn't do any of those things. He's a good man. He's a good man like me. He cares deeply about people. He cares deeply about his children, about society, about his community. I feel so safe with him. And the truth is, guys, I've met so many beautiful men like him. Men who don't cheat. Men who don't lie. Men who don't attack. Men who look at themselves and their own shortcomings and flaws before they judge and project onto others. There are a lot of men out there like that. And I'm so sorry. So sorry that so many of you have not met more men like that and not had relationships with more men like that. And I'm talking to both men and women. A lot of the people I counsel for sexual trauma are men who've been sexually traumatized by men. So I think this episode has turned into the beginning of a conversation. I'm not going to wrap anything up here. I don't know how to return to what I was talking about sub-dom or fucking polyamory or gender, my own experience of myself as feminine. They're just themes that I guess I'm just opening up in this episode. I love you guys. I love you guys. You might think, well, that's fucking trite. You don't even know who the fuck we are. This is on a public domain. We might be one of those incel Jordan Peterson fans that you clearly fucking hate. Don't give us love if you don't mean it. But I do mean it. I mean it. I love every animal on this planet. I mean that. You might be a fucking asshole. Or you might be misunderstood. But I love existence, right? Like I love consciousness. I love spirit. Whoever you are, I could find a way to love you, I bet. And it's a nice way to end things sometimes. It's fucking woo-woo, right? Oh, I can't push stop. I need to do a fucking freestyle. Okay, I'm going to try my best, guys. I'm feeling a bit emosh. Oh, Tommy got emosh for once. That's unusual. What kind of fucking song should I sing right now? Just take one step, don't look behind. Don't think those thoughts that lost your mind. We're gonna make it through this time. Don't get caught up in things you once believed, but don't believe. Instead, receive the gifts of these new frequencies tonight. Don't step behind your rainbow pride. You get inside your head, trouble mind. Don't feel the vibe that you can't buy. It's alright. It is alright. Alright tonight. Alright tonight. Muchas gracias. Have a beautiful day, folks. Oh, please share this with your friends if you like this podcast.